Call the planning and zoning committee together into order. That the planning and zone director will quiet down back there. We'll call the meeting to order here. First of all, I declare we do have a quorum. Rick, Ms. Fields, Mr. Will you lead us to prayer, please?
Sure. Y'all join me, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for another day of life that can be taken away at any second, and your graciousness gave us another day. Father, I just pray that during this meeting that we will remain calm and collected and do what's best for the county. Father, as several motions will be made, may we undertake those with an open mind and to lean on your wisdom. So, Father, again, thank you. Thank you to Colonel McFarland's leadership and the other committee members that are here. Pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Okay, do we have minutes? We have minutes. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Any comment? No comment. Motion on, all in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Time for public comment. I think we got 2 or 3 people who make public comment, and we limit that generally to 3 minutes, so.
That's fine, Colonel. You got 2 meetings tonight.
We do indeed.
My name's Chris Sorrell in District 13. I've talked to the chairman of the Rules Committee.
Diane, you watch the
3
clock.
minutes, counting down.
I spoke to that man once on text message, and since then I've maybe reached out probably 6 times over the last 3 months. I haven't reached out to him at all. Prior to that, I've texted him maybe 6 times in 3 months. One excessive, and I've spoken with
Say again, who you're speaking of.
Rules Committee Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
I've spoken with Commissioner Franklin. I don't blow your phone up when I talk to you about road things. You don't never blow your phone, never blown anybody's phone up. I give them time. I've given them plenty of time. Your rules say you can't have any signs. Your rules also say you gotta have your agendas posted and how it does it. And then none of that's happened. So long story short, if I can't get them to call the meeting to fix the rule, then I'm gonna nullify the rule for it. Because if you can't enforce your rules, you can't enforce it on me, you can't enforce it on someone else. The gist is this, there was a state house rule, and it said you can't have signs, prohibited signs. I'm not big on the signs, but I am big on First Amendment, and I hope everybody else is too. And when they said you can't have them, they were sued. That injunction was put in place. The state that state house no longer has that rule. It's easily Googled. You can find that court case. You can find that on the news anywhere else. It's the same rule Wilson County has. But for some reason, the chairman of that rules committee won't call a meeting. So if he won't call a meeting to change some of the rules, to update them, and I'm not saying you should allow everything, but you can put reasonable rules in place. That's all I'm asking. If he's not gonna put reasonable rules in place, I brought a sign, and I'm gonna violate their rules. Anybody gets upset about that, they get upset about it. Would you like to see the sign, Chairman?
I would.
The sign,
It's not vulgar, is it?
right there. No, sir.
Oh.
You could show that in your church with your grandparents sitting right there. But if that's what I got to do to get him to do it, I'll see y'all every 3rd Monday and just various times when I get bored. And I'll keep doing that until he finally gets around to calling the meeting. And if y'all wanted to ask him to call that meeting, that'd be fine too. I understand if you don't.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for your time.
To the members of the committee, I'd like to make a motion before the committee, which I don't always do, that we send this issue to, in some manner, everybody gonna do it right, to chairman of the rules committee and ask that he call a meeting. And that signs are permissible, and I understand they are, that they should be no larger. We can regulate size, understand, no larger than 18 by 18. That's 18 inches. So I'd like to make a motion, we send that message and request to the rules chair. Motion died for lack of a second. Moving right along, sir, do you want to speak?
I do.
Okay.
By now, you've all had a chance to see an email I sent to each of you yesterday. Here's a copy of it. I want to make sure that that's part of the public record. I don't know if that goes to the attorney or to you. So I'm not here to talk about lot size. I'm here to discuss how this proposal was generated. Remember, it was the A1 reduction of the lot size in A1, where we are now, and offer a solution to the problem so this won't happen again. Here's a quick review of the situation. This committee met in February. The chairman casually brought up the subject of lot size, very little discussion, no action. In March, the chairman and an employee of one water provider met to talk about a proposal to reduce lot size in A1. Later in March, the planner presented this proposal to the Planning Commission, who voted 7-2 not to change the lot size. Later in March, this committee voted 4-2 to recommend to the full commission to reduce the lot size. In April, the commission voted to table the question. So in general, that's what happened. I do have some questions. First, I have the same question Terry Ash had. He's on the Planning Commission. He has professional experience in asking the right questions, and it's the same question I had. It's a simple one. If this committee did not vote to bring the question before the Planning Commission, then how did it get there? Can any one member of this committee represent the whole committee in order to generate a proposal to be heard before the Planning Commission? In this case, there's no public record of the discussion leading to the proposal. Who initiated the discussion? Was there a problem with the current lot size? And if there was a problem, could it have been solved in a different way? Why was this proposal made in the first place? And now's the time. It's just worth noting a couple of things, and then
1 minute, sir.
I'll be done. In all 4 of the public meetings held on this matter, the only person who advocated for reduced lot size was the person who met with the chairman in March to generate the proposal. There's no testimony from Bladeville or Gordo, West Wilson Water Utility, nothing from electric providers, internet providers, police, roads, schools, public businesses, private businesses. Not one citizen spoke in favor of reducing lot size, and several spoke against it. Here's my suggested solution so this does not happen again. This committee must hold a public vote before instructing the planner to approach the Planning Commission for their audience. Those instructions need to be in writing, and it must be part of the public record. That's it. I'll take any questions.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Anybody else want to make a comment? Public comments closed. First item on the agenda is AFT. I have asked Lauren Breeze, Commissioner Breeze, who has done some research, a considerable amount of research, on the commercial industrial AFT. And Lauren, you take it very briefly, please.
All right. So in your packet, you should have several staple packets. Okay, you want to start with this one that starts, says adequate facilities tax on the top. It says adequate facilities tax.
Right,
So
right.
at the top of this packet is the private act. So that way you have the full text of the private act. And for commercial, on page 3 of the packet, in section 7B, it says the authority to levy a tax on new commercial and/or industrial development is hereby authorized. However, this tax may not be collected unless a resolution establishing the tax and the amount of the tax shall be approved by no less than a 2/3 vote of the governing body of Wilson County, Tennessee. That's the only paragraph in our private act that talks about commercial AFT. So unlike residential, where it's very, it's outlined that there's a structure to it, we can, basically, the county commission has the authority to structure commercial AFT however we see fit.
Manufacturing company and warehouse.
So, yeah, any type of commercial business, AFT. So if you move forward, you can see on, let's see. There's a resolution 0516, so in 2005. Go down to where it's highlighted at the bottom on that first page. With regard to the building permit for commercial and/or industrial development, resolution 038-9, which follows, shall be amended to state, in Wilson County, the amount of adequate facilities tax will be equal to the amount charged by the Wilson County Building Inspector for the building permit. Likewise, in the cities of Lebanon, Mount Juliet, and Watertown, the amount of adequate facilities tax payable to Wilson County shall be established in an amount equal to the amount charged to receive a building permit in the respective jurisdiction. So that resolution is the one that actually ties AFT, commercial AFT, to
The building
the
permit.
building permit fee. So it doesn't have to be structured like that.
But it is now.
So, right, it is now,
When
so
it-
currently it is, yes. All right, so following that is resolution 038-9, which is what 0516 amends. And oddly, 0389 is actually, I think, one of the first pilots we've ever done. And I don't know why it's amending this particular resolution, but that way you have all of the history here. So I guess that paragraph somehow amended that. Point is though, that's what ties between those two, that's what ties commercial AFT to building permit fees. So you can keep going through this document, it's 9 pages, so keep flipping. The next one is resolution 1992, and that's what increased AFT for residential to 5,000 on the commission floor. And then the last resolution you have in your hand there is 23-2-5, and that is where we set a minimum for commercial at 5,000. So you've got the entire history of AFT in your hand. So that's packet number 1.
Hey, okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Please.
all right, so let's see here. All right, yeah, like I said, hang on to that. All right, so the next packet is about the building permit fee schedule. I'm not gonna walk you through this one like I just did, but you can see in the second packet, this is the history of our building permits and how we establish building permits. On the very last page of this section, you have a piece like this. This is our current building permit fees.
Schedule,
Yes.
schedule, I'll say.
Yes, schedule of fees, yes. So this is what we charge, and this is the same schedule of fees for commercial AFT. So that way you have that. All right. Keep going, sorry, I told you there's a lot of pieces of paper. Okay. So, last year, the County Powers Act was updated. So, county powers is what allows
What are we now
Other
charging?
counties.
What are we now charging?
right now,
Right now, 20 cents.
for what, for commercial
Industrial.
and,
Right.
well, it's whatever it is based on the schedule. So remember, because the schedule's based on square footage.
Okay,
So if you've got a building less than 10,000 square feet, the building permit fee is 90 cents per square foot. As you continue to go up for a building of say 200,000 or 400,000 square feet, the building permit fee is 12 cents per square foot. So your AFT mirrors your building permit fee unless your building permit fee is less than 5,000, and then it's a minimum of 5,000 for your AFT.
continue, please.
All right. So, County Powers Act in 2024. So
Last
this
year.
was just updated, yes. So this is what allows counties to actually charge any type of a facilities use tax or impact fee, unless you're under a private act like we are. So, what their guidelines are for county powers, for commercial, well, as well as residential, this is what it says. So it's 67-4-2908A, it's on the second page. And so this is county powers, so this is TCA. It says for the exercise of the privilege of development, a county may levy a tax based on the floor area of new development. A county initially levying a tax under the authority granted by this part may levy the tax at a rate not to exceed $1.50 per square foot on residential property and $1.50 per square foot on up to 150,000 square feet of commercial property. So that's your state guidelines. So Rutherford County actually adopted county powers of 24 in October. So that's what Rutherford uses. It's $1.50 per square foot up to 150,000 square feet for commercial.
What about residential?
So,
150 on residential
Yes.
as well, so
yes.
average.
Yeah, so that's what they do. Unfortunately, because of our private act, to be able to continue our grandfathered status, we can't change the way residential is structured. We can only change the amount per residential unit. You can't change it to a square footage, charge. We've tried that before. And I'm sure Mike could weigh in if anybody had any.
I don't know, we've talked about that. before.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've tried.
I know there was a conversation a couple years ago. We had somebody come in, the gentleman who came in from Franklin, who made a proposal, and it was just a workshop. And so, anyway, okay. so then you got-
Industrial proposal.
Right, so we're only talking about commercial. All right, so now you have this. So this is actually exactly what is on the website for Rutherford County. So that's where they adopted county powers. And then your second page is this memo right here, and this is Sumner. So Sumner is also underneath the private act, and they do, it's 70 cents for residential and 40 cents per square foot for industrial. So that's Sumner.
So what you're saying is we under the market, get to you a minute, right? We're under the market.
Most likely, yes. Last piece. This is a TASER report. So this is done by the state, or the body that does research for the state legislature. It's 150 pages. I dumbed it down for you. The important part is at the end, there's a couple of appendixes, and it actually will spell out Appendix B, local government rates for impact fees and development taxes. So it has multiple pages, and it tells you everything where everybody is charging. Now, again, this was May of '24. So this is right before County Powers was updated. So this might be off for a few counties, but it's close. And it's the most recent information I could come up with quickly. So, based on the guidance I was given by the chairman, he asked me what would be the difference in what we could actually bring in for AFT if we looked at changing our commercial rates. So if you look at this now, this 2-page. Sorry, I told you lots of information. All right. Okay, so the first part over here on the left-hand side, those first 5 columns are all information that Rachel Wallace thankfully put together for me in the Wilson County Building Permit Office. And so this is all of the different commercial buildings that have occurred since 2020 in the county. So this only includes in the county. It doesn't include the cities, which we also do get AFT off of, but it was more difficult to try to put together that data. So this gives you an idea. So if you look down at the bottom on that last line right there, kind of in the middle, it says fees doubled February 23 and the 5,000 minimum was set. So that's where we actually did double the building permit fees in that resolution, which you have in that packet. And that's where the minimum was set. So that'll kind of, you can see the fee structure there. So all I did here was I just ran some numbers. So I just took the square footage, and you can see over here in those other columns, and I ran it at 50 cents a square foot, $1, $1.25, $1.50, and $2. Just so you can see some numbers. And those totals are on the second page down there at the bottom in bold letters. Now, before we start talking about those big numbers, I consulted because we're talking about commercial AFT, and I want to make sure that before we really decide on anything, first, I think that this is a very large conversation. But secondly, I wanted to make sure that we actually consulted Corey Johns, the Joint Economic Development Board, being that he's the one who actually goes out and courts businesses to try to come into Wilson County. I thought that he really needed to have a seat at the table with this conversation. So I did ask him to come this evening.
We won't court
If there's
talk, but
any
let me
Yes.
do a little history here. The last meeting, everybody remember, last meeting, we asked you to do the research you had brought tonight, which is great. And we can now see what it is, but we also, I think, know there's diminishing returns. The higher you go, the more likely, and I think Corey will probably speak to this, more likely somebody said, that's too high, I'm not gonna move my
Right.
manufacturing company to Wilson County. So there's probably a trade-off there, but this was not for decision. This was study and probably decision being down the road, another meeting or two.
Right.
This is for discussion. And I think the committee has all the data they need to study to go from there. Do what now?
We do. This is fantastic.
Well, thank you.
We should do everything like that.
I agree, Bob. Well, let's just say the way you feel there, Bobby, it doesn't make any difference. Anyway, let's let Corey talk and then let's get a little discussion with the committee and then we'll move on. Corey, please.
Well, thanks for the time today. I'd really rather, answer any questions. By no means am I an expert on AFTs, but I am a pretty quick study. So I've dug into this a little bit and grateful for the information that was shared. I will add to some of these discussions, just around kind of where market is, that currently Dixon County applies $1 per square foot to residential, 25 cents per square foot to commercial, and they distinguish industrial where they apply 15 cents per square foot. Similarly, Montgomery County applies, theirs started at $2.50 per new lot, which is an interesting concept, or per unit. But it allowed a 6% annual increase up to 1,000. So I think that was 2004. I think by this point they're probably pretty close to 1,000 per lot or per unit. And then there was, you touched on Sumner, sort of where they're at. One thing that jumps out to me about where Sumner is on the residential compared to the commercial is, and I don't know which this is, I'm not sure what their intent was, but they're 70 cents per square foot on residential, 40 cents per square foot on commercial and industrial. To me, when I see that, there's a couple things that jump out. One, it recognizes the how valuable the tax generation for commercial properties, which are taxed at 40% instead of 25%, inherently built into that system. I think the other thing is, because a lot of this is from conversations and research, half of ours is going to school debt and the other half is going to capital projects that could support a variety of different things. I'm not sure how other communities maybe structure that or are allowed to, but I think the residential piece, obviously our school needs, school overcrowding is driven primarily by residential growth. Commercial industrial, does it have an impact on that? Sure, but it's a secondary impact. It's not as directly correlated as your commercial. So I think that kind of distinction there was something that I found interesting. So just to put a couple of faces on some of where the numbers landed out. So one of our most recent exciting wins on the recruitment front was the Schneider Electric project. We in fact got 2 projects out of that. The first one is very close to being operational. And speaking with the developer recently, I've not been inside yet. I'm hoping to get in there very soon. But he recently took a tour and he said, "Man, you won't believe what they've done in there." He goes, "This is not an industrial building. They turned this thing into a manufacturing building." It's like, good. That's what they were supposed to do, right? So there's some interesting other stuff going on in the news where one of our United States senators is in a bit of a fight with the media over whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden gets to take credit for that project. And the reality is that neither of them do. The state of Tennessee, Tennessee Valley Authority, and Wilson County get to take credit for it because we're the ones that landed it. But to put a face on that, the first project is in a 502,878 square foot building, which was levied an AFT of $24,103.90. So at looking at what Rutherford County and Murray County are at now on the 150 a square foot under the County Powers Act, that would come out to $753,000 is what it would have been. Now they have the cap on the 150 that's under, but that's stipulated. But I think that's stipulated by County Powers Act. So that would be something, a cap on the square footage would be something that if this were changed would have to be contemplated. It wouldn't just naturally follow because County Powers Act caps that in both of their instances is my understanding, right? So even then you're talking about $225,000 for that. So that's 10 times what the current amount would have been. Let me kind of get to one other aspect of that. Because, and I think this is part of what's key, because that building was built speculatively. They didn't have a tenant. The developers went out, they put their capital at risk on the presumption that they could find a tenant that would help them, that would help them realize a profit from the lease of that facility. So they did that, speculatively. You know, at what point does, an onerous AFT stop speculative investments? I can't answer that question here today, but there certainly is a threshold. But as a result of that being a speculative build, it was already on the tax rolls before we recruited that project. So last year, this year, and every year heretofore, that building is producing almost $140,000 in tax revenue annually for this community. And that's not counting the additional investments that are being made by the company in building improvements. Last thing I'll say here, one other example, this was in the news recently, you probably saw that Amazon bought one of the Panattoni buildings down at the Speedway. So that was from my sheet here, that was a 618,912 square foot building, 1301 Richard Petty Way. The purchase price that showed up on the records and in the paper was $116 million. So at $1.50 a square foot, again, that would have been almost $1 million without the 150 cap, compared to the 61,891 that they actually paid. So again, even with the cap, you're looking at about $225,000 on that. But that building, again, speculatively built, it generated for the 2024 tax year, $182,900 in tax revenue for this community. And then in March, it was purchased for $116 million. So next year is gonna produce a little bit more revenue than that. So, I think when we think of it in this perspective, when we think about that, according to the land use data that we're using as part of the future land use plan, about 3% of the community's total land mass is commercial or industrial, yet those properties produce 1/3 of the county's assessment. There's an old adage about biting the hand that feeds you. So I think we want to be very wise about how we approach this, understanding where the market is. And the last thing I just want to know, as I spoke to my
That's the
peers.
third time you said the last thing.
I'm sorry. Last exhibit or last comment.
Time's up.
I did speak.
Time's up.
I did speak with my peers in Rutherford and Murray to ask them what sort of impact this was happening. And basically, the answer was because of the law was just changed and they basically just adopted this in the fall. They don't know yet. So a little bit more time, I think, would be to be able to see how that impacts, additional development and particularly speculative development. Because again, we don't hold any community-owned properties. So if our commercial properties are going to be developed, they're going to be developed by the private sector for our benefit.
Thank you, Corey. I've got a
Yes.
statement and a question.
Yes, sir.
The statement is apparently we may be leaving a lot of money on the table on these schools and stuff in the future. But the question is, if you got a pilot, big industry, I don't know what, 200,000, 500,000 square feet, and you got them on pilot 5 years, no taxes. And we went to $1 per foot, they'd pay that one time, and they wouldn't pay any taxes out to 5 years. Is that correct? And how would that affect recruiting? That's the thing. There's a threshold you mentioned, and the threshold I mentioned. Where is that threshold?
So let me take a
No.
moment here and make sure
Quick,
because
do it kind of quick.
this gets confused a lot in the general public. Pilot only goes for additional investment. So taxes that are being charged continue to be charged, right? If they're already on the tax rolls. The pilot is for taxes that are a result of additional investment, right? So
New build?
it's an inducement to do that, right? So, in terms of, obviously you're gonna have the AFT regardless, right? So that's gonna be a one-time. Then the abatement is gonna be on the additional taxes that are owed over whatever that term is. So how's that gonna impact recruitment? One thing I'll say about this environment we're in right now is cost of land's going up, cost of buildings going up. We're still in an era of inflation. That's only gonna continue. The conversations around tariffs. I was an econ minor, not a major. Don't have a PhD in it or anything, but I understand that tariffs cause prices to go up. It's a universal known, right? So, we're in an era of volatility right now.
I'm asking you to guess on the threshold.
To guess where the sweet spot is.
Well, threshold which will no longer get industry coming here.
What was that the JGCDB recommended?
I can't-
They got I mean, we give them $400,000 a year and they're experts at development.
Okay.
I mean,
We just-
seriously.
What we're gonna do is take this 30 days to study it, but I'm just trying to get, get,
I mean, I can't.
We don't know where it is, do we?
I can't give you an answer where the sweet spot is. It would be, it's an academic question, right? It's not an issue until it is, and then you've gone too far.
I'll tell you, thank you very much,
Right.
Bobby.
Well, I mean, like I say, we got a board. It's all the mayors of all our cities is on the executive board. Why not get them to weigh in on this? I mean, this is taking decades to get this scrambled like it is.
Mhm.
I mean, surely we ought to be able to rub our chin a little bit.
How do we do that? You
Think about it.
want me to go to the mayor? You gonna go to the mayor? Get set up?
I'm on their board.
Okay, well.
I think it'll get to him, I chair that board.
Well,
I think it
bless you, Mike, get it, bless you.
Well, I don't know that I won't put that on either, but we.
Well,
We will.
we need to land on something. I don't know where we're gonna land. You know,
And I have a couple of questions here, I just wanna make sure in my mind. I know we're talking about dollars, that's ultimately what drives everybody. But I've heard County Powers Act, and then we have an adequate facilities tax by private act. Are we proposing to go to the County Powers Act?
No.
Here, it's just I presented it as a benchmark.
Okay, because
Just
your
as
adequate
information.
facilities tax, let me say,
Right.
okay.
Yes,
Your adequate facilities tax, there is no limit, as long as you can
Right.
get 2/3 vote, 17.
yes, sir.
right.
But there is a little bit of limitation, you gotta be able to attach it or loosely affiliate it with some project that benefits the county. Schools,
Roads,
jails,
schools,
Right.
that
bridges.
type of stuff, yes, sir. So I think that's where you wanna stay. Building permit fees, I don't know that there's any limitation on what you use those for, other than how y'all said it.
Well, the fee is supposed to be spent on the initiation of the department that oversees it, right?
It is,
The fee,
but didn't y'all do building permit fees? Didn't somebody say half of it goes to education and half of it goes to?
What was set up in one of these things, and it may take me a minute to find it, but basically it says a certain percentage of it will go to fund the office and the rest of it will go to the general funds, basically,
and the fees.
in the fees, building permits.
Let's see, yeah.
Well, you made it. I forgot the term you used just now, but that's back to that sweet spot he called it threshold. I call it somewhere you're gonna meet diminishing returns.
Yep.
And, you know, if we can get as much money as we can get for schools and roads and whatever we can get, we ought to do it. But at the same time, we don't get so high that people, we ain't coming there. So that's the reason for, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Resolution 99-412, not general fund capital projects. Be it further resolved that 30% of the building permit fees collected be used to upgrade and enhance the operation of the building inspector's office, and the planning office, the remaining 70% shall be used to fund other county capital building projects.
Okay. Thank you very much. So at any rate, we got material to study on, so we can come back to another meeting and you figure there, you guys begin your dreaming process, don't come up, no, to do the dreaming process or where this thing's gonna land and we'll discuss from there. Okay, next item on the agenda.
Miss Ann.
Thank you, Ms. Warren.
You're welcome.
Thank you, dear.
You're welcome.
PUD zoning ordinance amendment. Start,
Yes,
step
sir.
forward.
All right, you all have in your packet, it's a plan unit development analysis. This is a snapshot, the one with the blue covers, it's a PowerPoint presentation printed out for you. You asked us to look into adjoining areas and kind of see how we stack up HUD-wise with other developments. Miss Naomi in my office put this together. This is so you don't have to go through the ordinances page by page. We consolidated them into a one-page issue for you. What the vision of all PUDs for, ours included, from the four, communities that we looked into, which was Davidson, Rutherford, and Sumner, and Williamson. All of them are flexible and innovative in land development, conservation, and natural features is a critical part of them. They're all trying to conserve those natural and sensitive places, spaces, and to allow increase in density in return for a more idealized development. The first page is Wilson County is what we're currently doing. We looked at R1 and R2 because we currently don't allow HUDs in the A1 district. Wilson, everything that you see in this packet is based off of a 100-acre tract, because it's an easy round figure to manipulate. Right now, we allow 75% of any property to be developed. If you do the PUD, we give you a 0.35 unit per acre increase. So that would bring your R1 natural density up to 1.44 units per acre, which on a 100-acre tract gets you to 108 lots. If you were to do that in the R2 development, it brings you to 187 lots. And that's just on a 100-acre tract, and that's with us. If you're all familiar with ours, we have lot thresholds in our amenity thresholds in our PUD. Once you get to this many lots, you have to you're required to provide one of these amenities to the community at a minimum, and they go up as the intensity of the amenities go up as the lot count goes up. The next one is Davidson County. We use all these jurisdictions have different zone districts. We tried to pick zone districts that were similar to ours if they were going to do a PUD. They have an RS 80 in Davidson County and an RS 40. They do not take anything off the, they only take 15% off the top of developable land. So for a 100-acre tract with their RS 80, which is their low density, is 46 lots, and their RS 40 is 92 lots. They do not have a PUD, density improvement gift or gap. They allow a 25% increase on density if you are to provide certain things to the community, whether those be off-site amenities. You can dedicate land in their PUD ordinance for public facilities, whether that be for a school, marina station, a convenience center. That is interpreted by the county commission. And it could even be a site that holds significant archaeological value to the county. I don't know how that one would necessarily apply to us, and I don't know how we would justify that particular part, because I'm not an expert in historical facilities. But that is the only way to achieve density improvements in Jackson County is through some sort of benefit to the community, where you're either donating land or constructing a public facility on the developer's dime, and then they'll give you a density improvement per that.
Public facility as in fire hall.
It could be a fire hall, school, it could be a library. They don't dictate, as long as the public facility is adopted by their county commission and they see that that is a fit or a need for the community. It doesn't delineate that it has to be for public safety or anything like that. Excuse me. Your next one is Rutherford County. They have two districts that we looked at. One is their agricultural residential zoning, and the next is their low density residential. They allow you 100% development of a tract, but their agricultural district has a minimum lot size of 217,800 square feet. I don't know exactly where that comes out to be. I'm pretty sure that's just shy of 5 acres. But it would give you 24 lots, and the low density would give you 100 lots exactly. They do not have a specified for a set density increase for PUD developments. They have it as an item of consideration when you apply for your PUD packet to the planning commission. You specify what zoning target you want, and they approve it based on how they feel your development fits the character of the community.
They have larger lots.
Well, it could be smaller lots, but you're having to come say, I want smaller lots and I want this density. At that point, it's a bargaining agreement on what they're gonna offer to get that positive recommendation from those committees to move forward.
In our ordinance, we'd have to do that by base zoning district.
Yes.
We'd have to increase.
Yes. But there, and I've not looked in, like I didn't pull one of their PUDs that they approved to see what density was and what they kind of gave the community in order to get that. That's just they're going hat in hand almost to a planning commission, saying, this is the density I wanna achieve, this is what I'm gonna offer, what's it gonna take for me to get a positive recommendation? Which I believe is kind of the direction that the county is wanting to go based on conversations that I've had is, let's not put all of our information forward saying this is what you have to provide. It's more of the direction of what are you going to provide for us, and then we'll step down from there. Sumner County is very, very similar to Rutherford County. If you look at their photo ordinances, I'm almost positive they are the same thing. They've just manipulated it for them, their own density. Sumner County has significantly more density for a 100-acre tract. Their low density is 2.2 dwelling units per acre, which would be 220 lots. And their medium density is 3.5, which will allow them for 350. And they have the same kind of bargaining agreement where you come to the planning commission, state the density that you're desiring, and what you're going to give them community infrastructure wise in order to achieve that increased density. The last is the PUD review process. It just shows what is required for a PUD in each community. Rutherford and Sumner, they have a pre-app meeting, a pre-application conference meeting that they have with the planning commission, which is kind of a planning commission that only the developer is allowed to speak at. They submit their proposal, they give everything in. There's a little bit of back and forth between the developer and the planning commission, but there's no public input at that meeting, and there is no vote at the planning commission for that. It's more of a pre-application meeting to the planning commission, and the planning commission can discuss what they'd like to see on it, but there is no vote at that point. But it will be a pre-application meeting to the planning
The
commission.
concept plan.
Yes. And then it goes through the same process. They all give recommendations from planning commissions and are then forwarded to county commissions for the ultimate approval. The variation from bulk standards, and I know this has a little heartburn, setbacks, building heights, landscape buffers, lot size, and design standards. All those would be variances requests that would typically be handled by BOZA, and all the PUD languages, those are all variances requests that are handled by the planning commission and then ultimately voted on by the county commission to approve or deny. Similar to what happened with Cumberland Oaks, you were presented with all the variances requests they wanted, and I gave you each, the recommendation from the planning commission on each one of those. And those are all voted on. You can vote on them as a whole or one by one, similar to what we did for Cumberland Oaks.
So our ordinance, the PUD can never really go to BOZA for anything, right? It always has to come back to planning.
I don't think anybody has set them up where a PUD would go to BOZA. I think it would complicate matters, to be honest, because typically once you approve those regulations, the only way to amend from them is to go back through the rezoning process and have the planning commission bless it. All of which I think have kind of accomplished, or they're trying to accomplish the conservation of land. Some of them do it differently. They, like Davidson County, they give you densities based off of what you're gonna provide, and they'll give you them in 25% increments. Some of them require a minimum, such as Rutherford and Sumner. Rutherford requires 10% of the land to be put into a permanent conservation easement. So if you have 100 acres, there's going to be 10 acres that are left undisturbed from the beginning. We're not going to be able to develop. We can't utilize it for soils or anything. Sumner has 20% of that. And then there's thresholds that Rutherford and Sumner and Davidson somewhat have in place, that in your PUDs, your developable land has to take place on 50% of the acreage. So you may have 100 acres and they'll allow you to calculate density off of that 100 acres, but you're going to fit all that density on 50% of the land. This is a consolidation of everything that we have. I know there's been some discussion on, we want to amend it, and I think everybody's familiar with where our current PUD is, based off just trial by fire with Cumberland Oaks. I'm happy to take any interpretation. I have reached out to some of my local cohorts at the thing. They're not interested in presenting as a work session, because I know that was brought up. So if I did a work session on PUDs, it'd have to be probably somebody who writes them, similar to, it'd be like a development group or a GNRC related planting. Somebody that writes that specific section of the zoning ordinance.
I want to table this 30 days and determine where our feelings and things. I think that's okay with the committee.
Thank you.
That's another informational piece that we can look at 30 days and then come back and make any decisions and modifications that we made. I have there, so. Is that okay with the committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, let's move on to the third issue here. C2 commercial, C3 highway commercial, please include contractor storage yard. And that kind of bothers me, but go ahead, sir.
This is a zoning resolution. There was an appeal to the office by one of the commissioners, to amend the C2 and C3 uses permissible upon appeal in the C2, in the zoning resolution. They want to, this is a resolution to remove contractor's yard and contractor's office or equipment yard. Contractor's yard is in C2 as a use permissible upon appeal, and then contractor's office and equipment yard is in C3 as a use on appeal. And this would remove those from being a requested use in those commercial districts.
Couldn't be there.
Could not be there. Currently, they can, if you want to have them, you have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and they have to approve them as a special use on appeal. This would remove that request altogether.
With all the growth we're having, how in the world are we gonna have growth if we don't have contract yards somewhere?
Well, they are still allowed in our light industrial districts as a use outright. They're not on appeal in industrial. If you have an industrial zone
What-
tract, you can.
What is
Is
it
this
rated?
regional? Is this coming from the planning commission? or-
No, this is coming from a commissioner, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but it's the 231 corridor is where it's originated from.
Okay.
How many's
Truck.
out there, do you know?
Contractor storage yards currently, three that I believe. There's
Two.
one on Old Murfreesboro Road, and there's one all the way down by the county line, which is a larger one. And then there's the one just south of the convenience center that's been a legacy one,
Yeah,
which was a roofing company,
yep, Garland,
thank you.
Who?
Garland.
Garland Roofing. Those are the
Left going south?
No, by the dumpsters, used to be the dumpsters.
Those are the three contractor storage yards that I know have approval out there. That's not to say that there's some operating, but those are the three that I know have BZA approval. There's one on Old Murfreesboro Road, which Bass Trucking is operating on, Garland, and then there's the tract right before you get to the county line as you're heading south and it'll be on your left.
There's a roofing company on the left just before the intersection of Old Warford Road.
That's what it's.
That's
That's the one you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
It's changed names. Boy,
I've been a contract storage yard all my life.
Yeah.
And that one has approval. I'm not, those would be, those ones that are there, they're there to stay. Just because you changed this resolution, there's no way to remove those at this point.
Who's got the authority now, Boza? If somebody comes in and says, I got 20 acres, I want to put 5 acres, storage on the front or back or wherever. Boza's got the authority to allow that.
They do, if they feel that it fits within the character of the area, so.
What is the reason for excluding these from C2 and C3?
It would just disallow those requests to even come before BOZA. Well, I mean, I guess they could still come before BOZA. There would be no way for staff to interpret that it fits within the character of the area to give a positive approval.
There's a reason.
So you'd still have the same situation even in the day.
Well, yeah, they could still.
I mean, they can come anytime they want,
Yeah.
what it amounts to.
Was this committee being asked? What were we asked to do here?
You are going to, if you don't amend this or table it, I will be forwarding it to the planning commission to make a recommendation to the county commission. Now, if the planning commission does not make any changes to the resolution that is presented before them, it will go to the county commission with their recommendation.
I have a question while you brought that up. And this one steps away from what we're talking about. Where does it say that the planning commission makes recommendations to the county commission? Our rule book states this committee does that,
Correct. That is
correct, Derek?
That is correct.
TCA.
So that's my question.
TCA. TCA makes.
I'm not worried about this, our rule book states this committee does that.
What, Mike, give us a reason.
It's kind of
I
common.
looked at that law, Tennessee Code annotated gives the planning commission that law authority on stuff. That doesn't mean y'all can't do it either.
And I,
But
and I'm not
sometimes state
taking,
law.
Well, that's what got us in a
Well,
lawsuit,
yeah,
to tell the truth, and that's why I'm asking that question.
that part of, the lawsuit's a different animal, we can get into that if you want.
No.
As far
Now,
as,
the lawsuit is what we're talking about right here about this. This committee made a recommendation to go to the county commission, and that's not what was presented. And when we substituted to go to that, that's when the county wound up in a lawsuit, correct, Mike?
That's what they're saying.
And that's what they're saying.
That's their position.
So that's my question about that, before we wind up in
as
that
far as
kind of situation again.
processes going forward, I'm not going to take anything to the county commission unless I get direction otherwise until I have planning and zoning and planning commission
Thank you very
on the
much.
same page, cause I'm trying to keep myself out of there as much as possible. That's why I'm stating to you all, if you all if you all don't table this and make a recommendation or forward this to the planning commission, as long as planning commission does not make any changes, I will then forward it to county commission. If planning commission makes any sort of amendments to a resolution, I'm going to come back before you all to hear that. That way I'm not getting different versions of the resolution passed around.
I mean, I think the process is flawed, and Mike, you tell me if I'm wrong, but the planning commission should make a recommendation that comes before this committee, and then we decide, vote to send it to the county commission at that time.
Well, y'all can decide that in your own,
According to our
but
county
I'm
rule
just
book.
saying, we're not gonna consider anything to the planning commission, but you can decide that.
And if you want that to happen, I'll take this to them first.
But my motivation is to keep us out of another lawsuit in the future.
I'm all for that.
Because that's what put us in the situation we're in,
Yeah.
plain and simple.
And I've got to leave, but y'all didn't want to talk lawsuit, but it's set for July 28 and 29. Isn't that what we saw today?
Chancellor.
It's set for trial.
What's the chancellor?
Chancellor, yes, I did.
It is set, is that?
It is. That's been reset twice, but
Based on the rules that I'm aware of, I just know that any sort of resolution of the zoning amendment has to touch both boards. I can't take one. to the
I understand
commission
that, but our
without-
county rule book specifically states that this committee is set up to make recommendation to the county commission. So to me, it needs to come from this body going to the county commission.
Correct.
And if I understand right, I don't know how to spout Tennessee code, but what it states is we have to consider anything our planning commission recommends.
The county commission.
Yes, consider.
But
Yeah, but we can override it.
But we have to consider.
right, that was the reason I, when during the land use plan discussion, I said, it's just not going for the plan, the zoning committee, it needs to, so. But tell me again, I'm still on it. Right now, C2 and C3, you can have a contracting yard.
As a use on appeal, it's not, just because you have the zone classification doesn't mean you're gonna be allowed. You still have to go to BOZA and request the use, and they have to interpret whether or not they feel it fits within the character of that area or corridor that it's in.
If they're considered the character of the area and all that, why is it here?
Because you had a commissioner asking questions about it.
I had a commissioner wanting to remove that, so they filed the paperwork to start that process, and that's why I'm before you.
One of our county commissioners?
County commissioners, yes, sir.
But the pleasure of the committee.
From what Christopher's telling us, if I understand, it's not gonna stop them from coming before the Board of Zoning Appeals asking for the same thing they're doing now. It just gives you the ability to say that you can't recommend.
Right.
But you're not, but as history dictates, you're not recommending that anyway, am I right?
Not typically, no.
See,
But on uses on appeal, there's not a hard, steadfast recommendation that will come with those, because I'm not supposed to be making that decision on whether or not it fits within the character of the area. I mean, I can always give my opinion of it if the board asks me, but that's not part of what's written in my recommendation.
When Cumberland Oaks came up, I
Yep.
stood on the commission floor and said, I've been down there, I've talked to the people, I've looked at the situation, and I think it's the best use of the plan, and I'm gonna make the motions on all the variants, I'm gonna make the motion on it. It looked to me like a commissioner that wants it, one commissioner, that wants this, I'll come forward and tell them why. And I'm just befuddled and I don't have a clue. You know, why,
Well, I would
why
say
does
it's
he wanna do
because He
this?
wants to, limit or prohibit these from coming into his district in the future.
Obviously, but why? I mean, is somebody getting into the watermelon patch or what? I don't know. I mean, why?
That I can't answer.
Maybe you're filling his district up. Maybe you feel like, you know, it's gonna be one big linear.
Or strip mining.
Well,
gonna get strip
looks to me
mine,
like if we're gonna consider, somebody will come forward and say, the reason I wanna do this is because.
Yeah, you tell him
Yeah, I think it's the commissioner of the district has concern over that.
Where is he? Her.
He had to leave.
I move as far as this next month.
That's probably wise.
Pardon?
That's probably wise.
So next meeting, whenever that is.
Yes.
And then, so we better understand, we're gonna do something for the whole county,
That's right. He
because
can,
one commissioner, one
he
district.
can tell you why. That's right.
Okay, and it may be a perfect good reason, but,
That's good.
you know, is anybody got any problem with Ferg? Good.
Burge or win?
Our next meeting, whenever that might be.
All right.
You had anything else, Chris?
that, that includes all mine.
We didn't vote.
Yeah, you had a motion and a second.
We didn't vote.
That motion second to defer. Okay, we had a motion and a second. My apologies to the commission. All in favor of deferring, say aye.
Aye.
That make you happy?
That did, thank you.
That's
Praise the Lord and pass that motion.
Stay.
Any other business before this committee?
The only thing you've given yourself 30 days on AFT and 30 days on HUD zoning, and then you deferred this to the next plan and zoning. Do you want me to work with you on setting a date to fall with Sandra for that, or is that a hard 30 days?
Let's let it ride.
I
They
didn't
keep
hear
reading all
30
this
days. I
stuff.
just
you know.
heard we were gonna,
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear 30 days. I heard more study. And we can talk about it later. 30 days is what you saying?
Well, that's what
Is that what he said?
That's what he said on the HUD.
On the
Okay.
HUD
On the
and the AFT, he said to wait 30
So
days.
So, put it for next time, next meeting, then we'll take action.
Got it. Okay.
Anything else come before the committee?
Well, I just wanna thank all the people who put this information together.
It'll help.
A lot of
Make it very
information.
good.
Judge, we got work to do.
Yes, you got a lot of
Thank
review to do.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion, adjourned. Thank you very much.